As we slowly head into the last month of the year, I'd like to offer a candid reflection on how 2025 has reshaped European transport policy and what I believe 2026 will bring. My main takeaway from 2025 is straightforward. This was the year in which sustainability fell by the wayside in the European political practice. The trend itself is not new, yet the consequences have produced a profound shift in the dynamics of EU transport policy making. The shift is complex and continues to evolve. Several actors have lost influence in the past year. Many green NGOs and part of the left and center-left have struggled to adapt. Their arguments remain scientifically sound, morally correct, and environmentally justified, yet they're no longer being heard in the same way. They have not adjusted to the new political environment, and in some cases have not even recognized that that environment has changed at all. Our own engagements at the Green Mobility magazine reflect this reality. Stakeholders who are open to discussion today are those who see opportunity in revising the existing framework. Those who were instrumental in creating the earlier model have found themselves less engaged and less present than ever before. The policy debate has moved in a new direction, and they and their efforts have not moved with it. On the other side, there are clear winners. It's not ideal to interpret policy in terms of winners and losers, but the fact remains that many companies and industry groups who advocate for a more balanced and technologically neutral approach have succeeded in shifting the agenda. Their win, however, comes with a considerable caveat. Within these organizations, there is now a divide between those who recognize that what they have gained is time and flexibility, and those who believe that sustainability as a whole can now or soon be dismissed. The latter is wrongly mistaken. The climate imperative remains. It originated from a genuine environmental crisis, and those crises are intensifying. Forest fires, floods, and extreme weather events are becoming more severe and more present in the lives of ordinary citizens. To assume that sustainability was a temporary concern, only relevant to the politics of the previous decade, is entirely incorrect. Those who have prevailed in 2025 are those who made a persuasive case for more time. Some place responsibility on manufacturers for planning failures. Others argue that the European Union and its member states imposed overly ambitious and harsh mandates too quickly, without considering the social or employment impacts. Those arguments, regardless of where one sit, resonated with the public. Most citizens are not concerned with whether their next car is electric. They are worried that their current vehicle will remain usable in their own city center for the duration of its economic lifespan. They're concerned about their jobs and not necessarily the technology that they'll be producing. This alignment of sustainability with industrial strategy, social acceptance, and employment concerns has completely reshaped the political conversation. Analytically, it's difficult to see how those who advocate for far greater ambition can regain influence during this political mandate. Their access to institutions has been dismissed, and without a major awakening and change of strategy on their end, it's unlikely to return soon. If they continue to push for a level of ambition that has lost political backing, they arguably risk further marginalization. That is, until the next election cycle begins, where the climate crisis shows its ugly head in ways which we cannot fathom today. Before looking ahead, the lesson of 2025 is clear. The environmental discussion has not disappeared, it has changed. It has become more political, more industrial, and more embedded with the economic and social concerns of everyday citizens. Those who recognize this will continue to shape policy in the year ahead, and those who do not will remain on the sidelines, and increasingly so. With this in mind, my predictions for 2026 are as follows. First, the focus on industrial resilience and competitiveness will intensify. Whether in electric trucks, buses, aircraft, or trains, Europe will continue to pursue a model which prioritizes European production, procurement of European goods for Europeans. Without such a commitment from both, and this is important, from both the public and private sectors, the arguments around competitiveness, security, and social acceptance vis-à-vis the ecological transition of the transport sector will not hold. This will remain a complicated issue because several legislative instruments, from taxation to EU-wide harmonization to health and safety rules, will need to be revisited to ensure that the EU and its member states are not just okay places to do business, but genuinely attractive for long-term investments in the eyes of manufacturers and investors and other stakeholders. Second, dual strategic civilian and military mobility will continue to rise on the political agenda. This includes infrastructure in its wildest sense, from roads to ports to grids, rail, and way beyond. We may see substantial new funding emphasis and renewed focus on cross-border road, rail, and maritime infrastructure, which can support military movement in times of intense conflict. These investments and political priorities must, in periods of relative peace, also be structured to support civilian needs as well. Managed correctly, this agenda can strengthen European security, European connectivity, and European sustainability policies, but time will tell to see how the Commission and, most importantly, Member States are in doing so. Third, 2026 will mark the beginning of a significant debate concerning the production and consumption of so-called sustainable transport fuels and e-fuels for the aviation and maritime sectors. Indeed, fuel production in both sectors has not reached the levels envisaged by policymakers. The Sustainable Transport Investment Plan, or STIP, recently announced, seeks to accelerate the progress through the redirected funding, double-sided auctions, and even an early movers coalition for ESAF. However, these incentives do not create new capital, and local planning obstacles remain still unresolved. Moreover, there is a deeper and perhaps more pertinent controversy emerging. Several producers and associations will argue that sustainable aviation fuels, biofuels, and e-fuels used in the maritime and aviation sectors are derivative products of wider biofuel production. Much like the claims that an affordable hydrogen economy is needed to support affordable hydrogen use in the transport sector, they will claim that without allowing these fuels to be used in other sectors, particularly road transport, production targets for the hardest to abate sectors such as aviation and maritime cannot be met. Their argument is in some ways mathematical. Production follows scale, and scale requires access to broader markets. This will create a profound division between those who accept this premise and those who insist that biofuels and e-fuels must only be reserved for aviation and maritime. This dispute will shape all forthcoming activity concerning the EU's automotive plan, the port strategy, and including the revision of ReFuelEU Aviation, FuelEU Maritime, and the EU ETS itself. And it's a battle which will likely see the creation of unlikely allies and may cause even deep divisions between and amongst stakeholders today. Finally, a topic of personal relevance, and that is the future of night trains and affordable, competitive, high-speed rail services across Europe. The discussion is not new, and yet it receives insufficient attention from policymakers. Despite the introduction of a high-speed rail plan in the past weeks, the sector is still seen as a secondary issue by several institutions and MEPs. Thanks to reforms in the past decade, rail today has the potential to achieve the same dynamism that aviation has experienced since liberalization in the 80s and 90s. Yet that potential is constrained by slow administrative processes, sluggish implementation, NIMBYism, a lack of cross-border standardization, and limited investments and arguably political will. My hope for 2026 is that this changes. It is not credible to promote comparatively expensive European-made products, ask citizens to change their behaviors, and call for reduced emissions whilst neglecting the most efficient medium and long-distance travel mode that Europe possesses and even excels in. Rail must become central to the political agenda in the year ahead, or the wider transition itself may begin to falter. If you would like more analysis of this kind, I kindly invite you to subscribe to the Green Mobility magazine and to follow our policy-driven podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much for all your time, and on behalf of all of us at the magazine, I wish all of you a happy 2025 and a prosperous and sustainable year ahead.